In 1962, Americans were glued to their television sets, the glow of the screens casting long shadows, as the Cuban Missile Crisis escalated. The nation watched, breath held, as President John F. Kennedy announced the discovery of Soviet missile sites in Cuba, a direct threat to American soil. Right then and there, the RF-101 Voodoo supersonic jet fighter was catapulted into the spotlight. Skimming the treetops at breakneck speeds, the Voodoo jet started over Cuban terrain. These aircraft were America's eyes, capturing crucial images that would dictate the nation's next move. The reconnaissance variants flew daring low-altitude missions, mapping the terrain while dodging the lethal clasp of SA-2 missiles lurking on the ground. As the fighter-bomber units awaited their orders, the pilots stood beside their fully loaded aircraft. Each pilot felt the weight of responsibility upon their shoulders, knowing that within the rotary bomb bays of their jets rested nuclear weapons, ready for deployment at a moment's notice. The RF-101 Voodoo, once a mere blueprint on the brink of cancellation, had defied odds and broken speed barriers. Now it hovered on the cusp of executing what could become the most decisive bombing run in history. The genesis of the legendary Voodoo jet took flight in June 1946, sparked by the U.S. Army Air Force's call for a long-range, high-octane fighter. This challenge was a direct descendant of the World War II mission that saw the North American P-51 Mustang shepherding Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses and consolidated B-24 Liberators through enemy skies. The Voodoo was envisioned as the nuclear age's answer to the Mustang, a guardian of the skies in an era of atomic tension. McDonnell Aircraft Corporation and several contenders threw their hats into the ring, drawing on cutting-edge German jet research. On Valentine's Day 1947, McDonnell's innovative design was recognized with a contract for 2 prototype aircraft, marking the birth of the XF-88 Voodoo. The first prototype, with its twin Westinghouse XJ-34 WE-13 turbojets, took to the skies from Morocco in October 1948, promising a new dawn in aerial supremacy. However, its initial performance, while solid, didn't quite hit the mark of expectations, with a top speed that left engineers hungry for more. Undeterred, McDonnell doubled down, outfitting the second prototype with afterburners, significantly boosting its thrust and performance. The Voodoo's speed, climb rate, and agility soared, though at the cost of its range, due to the afterburner's voracious appetite for fuel. Despite clinching victory in the fly-off against its rivals, the Lockheed XF-90 and North American YF-93, the Voodoo's destiny took an abrupt turn. The Soviet Union's entry into the nuclear club forced the newly minted U.S. Air Force to pivot its priorities toward interceptors over bomber escorts, leading to the premature grounding of the penetration fighter program in 1950. It seemed for a moment that the Voodoo's fate was sealed before it could truly ascend. In the early months of 1951, the United States Air Force reconsidered and came up with a new demand for a bomber escort that could match the escalating threats of the Cold War. Every major American aircraft manufacturer leaped to the call with their most advanced designs. McDonnell's bold vision and evolution of the XF-88 stole the show in May 1951. Recognizing the quantum leap in design and capability, the Air Force rechristened this aircraft as the F-101 Voodoo in November 1951. This wasn't just a simple makeover. The Voodoo was reborn, larger, more ferocious, and thirsting for the skies. Engineered around the massive Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojets, this beast carried triple the fuel load, promising unparalleled endurance. The modifications were extensive. Larger engine bays to house the behemoth J57s, and revamped intakes designed to gulp down air more efficiently at the razor's edge of the sound barrier. In a stroke of aerodynamic genius, and to tackle the vexing issue of pitch-up, identified in the Douglas D-558-2 Skyrocket's flight tests, an issue that could send a jet into an unrecoverable tailspin, the Voodoo's designers elevated its horizontal tail to the top of the vertical stabilizer, bestowing the aircraft with its iconic T-tail silhouette. As the geopolitical tide shifted, so too did the Voodoo's mission. By late 1952, the Air Force envisioned the F-101 not just as a guardian of bombers, but as a deliverer of nuclear payloads, branding it a strategic fighter. This dual role demanded versatility on a grand scale, a challenge McDonnell met head-on. The redesigned Voodoo, complete with its new inlets, T-tail, robust landing gear, and a mock-up of its nuclear arsenal, passed muster with Air Force brass in March 1953. The green light flashed, and an order for 29 F-101As was placed on May 28, 1953. Eschewing the tradition of prototypes, the Voodoo was ushered straight into low-rate production, showing confidence in its lineage from the XF-88 and a bold gamble that promised to redefine air power in the nuclear age. From a bomber escort to a nuclear strike plane, the Voodoo could do it all, even save the world from nuclear war. Transformed into a powerful fighter bomber, the F-101 Voodoo was primed to deliver a knockout nuclear punch against tactical assets like enemy airfields. The Tactical Air Command, or TAC, recognizing the Voodoo's lethal potential, dialed in a slew of modifications to tailor this aerial titan for its new role. Enhancements included beefing up its air-to-ground comms, outfitting it to lug additional external pods, and reinforcing its structure to handle the added stress and strains of its expanded arsenal. On May 2, 1957, the inaugural F-101A rolled out, destined for the 27th Strategic Fighter Wing. This unit, shifting under TAC's wing in July of that same year, bid farewell to their F-84F Thunderstreaks in favor of the Voodoo's cutting-edge prowess. Powered by twin Pratt & Whitney J57 P-13 turbojets, the F-101A was a beast in the skies, boasting rapid acceleration, a skyward surge that laughed in the face of gravity, and the muscle to punch through the sound barrier with ease, all culminating in a blistering top speed of Mach 1.52. Its cavernous fuel tanks endowed it with a staggering range of around 3,000 miles, making it a long-reaching fist of the United States Air Force. Equipped with the MA-7 fire control radar and complemented by a low-altitude bombing system, the F-101 was a dual-threat platform, adept in both dogfights and delivering its nuclear payload, namely the Mark 28 nuclear bomb, a thermonuclear warhead capable of yielding 1,450 kilotons of TNT. Its nuclear arsenal was versatile, capable of handling Mark 7, Mark 43, and Mark 57 warheads, though it shied away from conventional armaments in operational theaters. The F-101 was also armed to the teeth with 4 20mm M39 cannons, though it was common practice to swap out one cannon for a Tacan beacon receiver in the field. The Voodoo didn't just carry weapons, it set records. The special variant, the JF-101A, cranked the throttle during Operation Firewall to set a world speed record of 1,207.6 miles per hour, outpacing the previous record held by the Fairey Delta II. Yet, its reign at the top was brief, as the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter snatched the crown in May 1958. Out of 77 F-101As built, only 50 saw the rigors of operational duty, with the remainder dedicated to the pursuit of advancing aviation science. Despite its early teething problems, including a maneuverability ceiling of 6.33 Gs, the F-101A Voodoo was embraced by the Tactical Air Command with open arms. By 1957, the Voodoo underwent a transformation, emerging as the F-101C. This variant could pull 7.33 Gs in a dogfight and boasted several upgrades, including a beefier structure and a revamped fuel system. Initially taking to the skies with the 27th Tactical Fighter Wing in Texas, these birds of prey soon found a new roost, with the 81st Tactical Fighter Wing across the pond in Europe by 1958, standing sentinel as a strategic nuclear spear, poised to pierce the heart of the Soviet Union if the Cold War ever heated up. These pilots, the elite of TAC, were schooled in the art of high-speed, nap-of-the-earth flying, threading their Voodoos through enemy defenses to deliver their nuclear payloads. But as the wheels of progress turned, the Voodoo's reign in this role was sunsetted in the 1960s and replaced by the indomitable F-4C Phantom II, with some of the Voodoos being reborn as the unarmed reconnaissance variant, the RF-101H, serving until the dawning of 1972. The RF-101C, leveraging the rugged backbone of the F-101C, first cut the skies on July 12, 1957. Stepping into the light in 1958, this super spy plane swapped radar and cannons for a suite of up to 6 cameras in its streamlined nose. Designed to slip through the skies unarmed, it was cloaked in a layer of passive defenses, including the AN/APS-54 radar warning receiver, though it sacrificed true all-weather capability when plans for the AN/APN-82 electronic navigation system were scrapped. A fleet of 166 RF-101Cs were built, including 96 originally destined to be F-101C fighter bombers. The Voodoo's legacy wasn't just built on its nuclear deterrent role, it was also meant for speed. On November 27, 1957, Operation Sunrun saw an RF-101C, piloted by Captain Robert Sweet, smash coast-to-coast records, blitzing from Los Angeles to New York City and back in 6 hours 46 minutes, and setting a blistering pace from New York to Los Angeles in 3 hours and 36 minutes. Not to be outdone, another RF-101C, with Lieutenant Gustav Klatt at the helm, tore from Los Angeles to New York in just 3 hours and 7 minutes, showcasing the raw, unbridled power of the Voodoo. But where the RF-101C would show their true capabilities would be during the harrowing weeks of the Cuban Missile Crisis. On October 14, 1962, a U-2 spy plane's chilling revelation of Soviet R-12 theater ballistic missile sites in Cuba set the stage for what would become the most harrowing standoff of the Cold War. The post-mission analysis uncovered these missile sites and the menacing silhouette of SA-2 surface-to-air missiles guarding them. As the crisis unfolded, both the fighter bomber and reconnaissance variants of the Voodoo were thrust into the eye of the storm. Surrounded by a network of SAM sites, the Cuban missile locations necessitated a new approach: swift, low-altitude reconnaissance missions executed by Tactical Air Command's RF-101A and C Voodoos. These aircraft would charge with the monumental task of spying on Soviet activities and meticulously mapping out the Kremlin's chessboard in Cuba. The situation escalated when President Kennedy publicly disclosed the existence of Soviet nuclear missile facilities in Cuba, putting U.S. air defense forces on a razor's edge, bracing for a confrontation that could ignite nuclear war. F-101B pilot Jonathan Meyer recalled the fever pitch of readiness, quote, "In the Air Force, while our bombers reinforced their around-the-clock airborne alert flights, fighters deployed to and near Florida in preparation for tactical strikes, while our air defense units sent interceptors to emergency fields, for both survival and readiness should Soviet bombers attack." The F-101Bs were armed to the teeth, bearing Air-2A Genie nuclear rockets and AIM-4C Falcon missiles nestled within the rotodor of their weapons bay, primed for the unthinkable. Meyer further detailed the intense state of readiness, quote, "We flew there fully loaded, in pairs, and with our Air-2A nukes and IR missiles ready for war, while maintenance and supplies followed by truck. Landing on Billings' unprepared runway incurred a few cut tires, while our makeshift alert area was cordoned off and a 24-hour phone alert set up in a hangar. Fortunately, no Soviet escalation ensued, and a couple of weeks later, we returned to Glasgow to resume regular alert and training." Bon Hansen, piloting an F-101C from the 81st TFW, shared his experience of the nuclear brinkmanship from RAF Bentwaters, quote, "I was on alert the day the Cuban Missile Crisis balloon went up. It was around 0900, and we went to red cockpit alert until nightfall, and then reverted to 15 minutes. But initially, we really thought we were going, and for the next week or more, the whole wing was loaded and ready to launch. It was serious." The crisis de-escalated when the Soviets agreed to withdraw their missiles from Cuba in exchange for the U.S. pulling Jupiter missiles from Turkey and Italy, narrowly averting a cataclysm. Throughout this tense period, RF-101C Voodoos played a pivotal role, flying the critical reconnaissance missions that ultimately provided the evidence needed to confirm the dismantling of the Soviet missile sites in Cuba, defusing a potentially apocalyptic showdown.